Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up the final day of this week with some brand new music. We're kicking it off with Xoth. I've never heard of this band before. They don't have a lot of subscribers, but it was brought to my attention. I should probably check them out. We're going to look at the track Manuscripts of Madness off of their 2023 Exogalactic album. Let's dive into this and see what they're bringing to the table today. Getting right into it. Love the ride cymbal work. Very light and bouncy. Just creating a really fun atmosphere for the soloing, the shred, the heaviness. That bass is disgusting back there too. The vocals fit, but for some reason I was expecting power metal vocals. That cymbal work is so good. Fun little rhythmic ideas too. Slight tempo increase mixed with the snare on every beat just really gives us a ton of energy. Ooh, interesting interval choices, working with fourths. The wall of drum. A little bit of vocal variety too. Very epic. Using the low vocals to introduce this section. Jeez. What is with the production on that cymbal? That is just crisp. But like, there's a softness to it. It's just very clear there at the end how soft the cymbal hits were, but they had force. They had a really strong roll to them, which is a very cool sound overall. It almost sounds like the cymbals were emulating like a glockenspiel, but there was a cymbal. I don't know how to I don't know how better to describe it. I think if you heard it, you heard it. And if you didn't and it just sounded like a normal cymbal to you, I don't know there's any way I can change that. It just didn't sound like a cymbal. It's so bizarre. But I love it. It's not like in a bad way. It's just like such a really fresh take on cymbal production and shaping. And I love everything that went into it. Maybe it's just a cymbal I haven't heard before, and that could be it as well. It sounds like a ride to me, but it's like it's missing. You know what it is? This is it. It sounds like a ride cymbal. He's playing up towards the bell, but not actually on the bell. And someone else is muting it because what he's playing is definitely a two-hand technique. Well, if it is a one-handed roll, it is ridiculously fast. I've seen enough stuff in the metal realm to know that speed is not an issue. People can push themselves past human limits and do some insane stuff with rolls. Maybe he's gravity blasting a cymbal. I don't know at this point. But it feels, or it is muted. So much of the tail end is gone. You get just the attack, and that is it. The brightness of it without any of the reverb, any of the shimmer. And it's just a very cool way to do something like this because, you know, something we've talked about a lot with tech death is that anytime you're going to be playing fast, precise stuff like this, there's a lot of work that goes into the engineering side of it to create even more of a tighter performance. I'm not saying that these performers don't play as accurately or perfect as they do. Yes, everybody is just on another level as far as speed and precision. But space between notes is really important in tech death, especially this kind of tech death, the very clean, perfect, precise style. And the engineer most likely goes in and just tightens up a little bit of the space, pulls off a little bit of the uh, the resounding tail off of notes just to create even more of a gap between individual notes, which we're talking about 8th and 16th notes. There's not a lot of gap to begin with, so even shaving off just a little bit is going to multiply the effect here. And I think that's what's happening here, but for the cymbals. I don't think I've ever heard this done before, but it sounds really great. I don't know if that's what's happening. Again, it could be a technique I'm not familiar with, but it does sound like there's a production element to it as well, and it's just clean. It is so freaking clean, and I love it. Every bit of the cymbal work in this is just pure gold. All right, let's dig into this. Now that we're done gushing about cymbals. Bryan, what topics do you get stuck on sometimes? Okay, what is going on here? I never really had a chance to form ideas. I was slack-jawed, flabbergasted at the cymbal work. It's tech death. There's a lot all the time. One thing I really love about this specific interpretation of the tech death idea is the consistently changing rhythmic aspect. A lot of sections in here are based predominantly around eighth notes, but that doesn't mean that we exclusively or even I'd say majoritively, I don't know if that's a word, get eighth notes. It's just that that's the de facto state of things. But maybe two bars are eighth notes, and then, sorry, two beats are eighth notes. The third beat pulls in a triplet feel, and the fourth beat pulls in 16th notes. From there, maybe we do return back to the eighth notes, but maybe for only one beat now. Beat 2 pulls up to 16ths again, and 3 and 4 return to the eighth notes. It's still the home speed that many of the riffs return back to, especially in the guitar and drum work, but it's not the exclusive elements, it's just the home space. And as you noticed, I didn't really have symmetry to that either. Eighth, triplet, 16th, eighth, triplet, eighth, or whatever I said. That asymmetry of the rhythmic grouping, I think, is key to creating the linearity feeling of some of these riffs. I think if we look at things melodically and harmonically, we'll find riffs that are very tightly loop based, maybe just one or two bar passages, but they're played with a rhythmic idea that seems to evolve from bar to bar, and it makes it feel like it's constantly evolving. It's really nice to see a band do this. So often, it's either that a band is just consistently loop based or riff based, where they have the riff and it is what they play all the time, or we have a band that likes to change things up melodically, and the melody is linear on top of maybe a repetitive foundation. But I feel like metal really being a textural, rhythmic style of music is a great place for people to explore this, where your melody, the notes you pick, the distances that you change, when you go from one note to the next, what should the interval be? How long do you stay on a note? These kind of things can remain static while the rhythm underneath can be linear. And I think this is a really cool exploration. It's probably something we've heard before, but I didn't pick up on at the time. I really doubt that 2023 is the first time anybody's experimenting with composition like this in the metal field, but I'm noticing it here, and I like it. I think it is very cool, a way to introduce linear writing within structured composition. It's all structured. Linear writing within loop-based composition. And it just sounds so good. You get the familiarity of the phrase, you get to feel it through, but you also have this element of what comes next. Take me on this story, Mr. Guitar Person. And it's just such a blast to listen to riffage in that style. And it's something we hear across the entire song. It's not like it's relegated to just a single section. Most of this track feels to me to be harmonically looped, but rhythmically changing. And it's such an exciting way to write. Speaking about contrast and things that kept my attention, the vocals. They're not my cup of tea. But you know what? They kind of worked for me here. It's not what I was expecting. Again, as I stated at the beginning, for some reason I was thinking power metal. I don't know why. I think it's just the music being big and bolsterous at the beginning. It wasn't power metal music, but it was powerful. And my mind didn't really go to death metal until the vocals came in, and then I was like, wait, why was I even thinking about power metal? This is obviously tech death. Like, very clearly obvious. And somehow I missed that at the beginning. Also, I'm going to blame a little bit on the album art, which is kind of deathy, but also very sci-fi power metal. So, yeah, there were some signs that I was picking up on that maybe I didn't realize I was. But the vocals come in and they're all growly and I can't hear what they're saying, typical death vocals. And this only lasted for a little bit though. And then we shifted to a higher pitched, more nasally harsh. Before we transitioned into another section, we had more of a very wide sound, sort of guttural, kind of has a bit of a, what do they call that? A growl to it. Yeah, false chord stuff. And so there are a variety of harshes being utilized here, and even cooler, they do get layered at times. None of these ideas I think would have held my attention for an entire song, but having the vocalist jump between all of them, or maybe multiple vocalists, I don't know, jump between the different styles, overlay them, it creates a lot of contrast in the vocal area, and it never quite hits the point where I push it to the background as a foundational texture rather than a lead element. And I really enjoy that because rhythm. Legit though, the vocal rhythms are very cool because occasionally they'll line up with the rest of the band, with the guitars and what the drums are doing, and we get these very powerful moments where everybody is on the same emphasis pattern and everything's just real unified in it. And then other times they'll push into a very technical performance and create these layered rhythmic ideas where everybody's sort of doing their own rhythmic patterns, and so the emphasized beats are jumping around. You'll hear a snare emphasize something here, and then a syllable out of the vocalist there, and then a couple of eighth notes to emphasize a single beat out of your guitar over here, and it just ends up feeling so complex in a way that feels like sparkles, ornamental sparkles, little accents that just keep popping all around your head, like fireworks. Yeah, the musical equivalent of fireworks. If you have fireworks on like all sides of you and you're like, oh, pop over there and a pop over there, and oh, this one's popping now, and yeah, that metaphor maybe didn't work, but I hope you get the idea of it. Musical fireworks. Yeah, there's a rhythm game that did that too. I can't remember what it was called. I gotta look that up now. That's childhood stuff. That's like Xbox 360, early days of XBLA, back when it was called XBLA instead of just, digital indie games. Didn't really have a title out. Anyways, I'm way off topic here. Musical fireworks. That's what this feels like to me. And so my attention just keeps getting pulled in all directions. I don't have time to get bored of a vocal style or a riff or a rhythmic pattern because the song is always doing something new with it. Which is one of the things I'm drawn to tech death about in general. Whether it's Xoth here, which I guess I'm going to have to check this album out because I didn't know about it previously. Or First Fragment. Or Archspire. It's like musical ADD, and it just allows me to constantly focus on something new, and they never let down, let things up. They never chill out for a second, and I find that really interesting and fascinating from a musicianship level because I will never be able to play on this level of performance. Well, I mean, I got a good like 60 years ahead of me. I could probably practice and get there. But I mean, this is dedication practice. These are people who have put so many years of their life to mastering the guitar or the drums, vocals in order to achieve this. I mean, we're talking about virtuosos here, easily. Why am I talking about it? How did I lose track of what I was talking about? I don't know. I'm slack. Everything here is awesome. I think is where I was going with that. Harmony, melody. Let's talk about this. This is cool because a lot of the stuff they do here is metal. A lot of pentatonic ideas, utilizing darker, heavier chords, just really leaning into the grit and darkness that metal does really well, but just like everything else, it's not their exclusive mode. We had a guitar duet in the middle that had a lot of fourth intervals in it. This reminded me a bit of Baroque music. The fourth is a rather unstable interval, sitting right below the fifth, which is the most stable interval, and the third, which is a really great passing tone slash leading tone. And so we end up with a duet that features beautiful harmonies that introduce a ton of dissonance, of tension, not dissonance, but of tension into it. And so the resolutions that we get within the duet itself, and of course by the end of it, when we get the full resolution, is just constantly great. But interestingly, another style of music that is heavily dependent on fourths is classical. And so the duet section and subsequently many of the not solos in general, but just the lead guitar lines do have a classical quality to them. I'd still say like 80% of it is metal oriented, but there is a bit of classical to many of the riffs that I think works really well. And when you start introducing the counterpoint of the bass, and many of the rhythmic layerings that we get throughout, it's clear to me at least that the dense, layered approach to writing, density on melody, harmony, and rhythm, these dudes have a bit of classical background to them, whether they're just emulating some stuff they've heard or they've studied classical music in general. Which seems to be a through line with tech death that I like. Not all tech death has a classical edge to it, but if they do, there's a strong chance I'm going to be on board. And Xoth is doing that for me. I do think that this song doesn't engage enough with melody. That might be my only criticism for it. It is a very textural, rhythmic track. The melody writing that we got out of the solo and the subsequent duet was fantastic. I'd love to hear more of that. And it's possible that I just picked a rhythmic oriented track, and almost every note I had led up to how it was awesome rhythmically. Even when we talked about the guitar riffage, the melody was something that I contrasted to the rhythm of the melody. So, like I said, it could just be this track that I grabbed that just happens to be more rhythmic oriented. So, I am going to check out more of the album. I'm kind of how long is it? 40 minutes? That's not bad. It came out November 3rd, earlier this month. That's not too bad. Wait a second. No, last month. It's December already. How did that happen? uh, yeah, so, last month, about a month ago. Yeah, coming in way late at the end of the year, but gotta check this out. 8 songs, 40 minutes, that's not too bad. Let me hit some lyrics on this, and then we're gonna wrap this video up. Yeah, this is right on top. It's called Manuscripts of Madness. I should have seen this coming. It's about finding a book of eldritch spells and going through a ritual, creating a portal. There's some blood sacrifice involved in it. And the portal opens up, and like all these eldritch horrors come out, and it's not just the fear of seeing all this, but also the mental damage, because many of these beasts are psychic, and so our protagonist attempts to resist the psychic attacks and fails. That's how it ends. All of this seems to be, though, in support of dying. Dying seems to be a release that they're looking for, particularly a death by these eldritch horrors, by these cosmic beasts. Yep, that's the song. It takes a while to get there, though. There's a lot of description about the place that they're holding this ritual. A little bit of foreshadowing into what's going to happen. Some description of the narrator's mindset, what they want to get out of this, what they're hoping to do. It's well written. I'll say that for such a dark and gruesome and horror themed set of lyrics. It's kind of beautiful prose. There is some vulgarity to some of the descriptions, but it's all done in a tasteful way. I kind of dig it. And of course, it fits with the music. I mean, it's just heavy, abrasive, technical, difficult to process. It's constantly changing. Um, I wouldn't say any of the emotions of our narrator or even the events themselves are particularly reflected in the music, but there is something in the song itself that feels like tapping into powers you shouldn't. And maybe even a lot of the dissonance that comes out of the interval usage in our duet is supposed to allude to that as well. It's not a beautifully melodic duet. It's a really strong melody writing, but most of the harmony is to create dissonance, it's to create tension. Uh, so yeah, it's an abrasive, aggressive track that I really enjoyed. And this lyrics are sort of it's about an aggressive, abrasive event that seems to have killed everyone present. So those are my thoughts on Xoth's Manuscripts of Madness. What did you think of this one? Did you enjoy it? Anything that stood out to you? Things that maybe I didn't touch on that you think I should have? You have your own opinions or perspectives on it? Toss all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We do have one more brand new song today. I say brand new. I think it's newish. Yeah, it's a couple of weeks old. Um, but it was still released in November, even if today is. Can we make officially today November? It's really weird when the month changes in the middle of a week. At least it's weird for me because I work within weeks. I like them to be grouped together. Anyways, it's still a recent release nonetheless. That was a weird request. Let's just. I don't even know. The calendar is not perfect, but I suppose my suggestion would make it less perfect. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.